Coming up on Chopper's Political Podcast.
I was told that nobody ever listened to your podcast. I was told that, except your mum and probably my dog Peggy, actually. You're probably about it.
Welcome back to Chopper's Political Podcast. We're back after our summer break. I bring you the best guest gossip, news and stories from our studio, GB News in the heart of Westminster. It's back to school week for our politicians as they drag their feet towards the Houses of Parliament, busy with new ideas, fizzing ideas, maybe trying to lift them in the polls, certainly if you're the Tories or the Labour Party. We're recording this on a Monday as Sir Keir Starmer is reshuffling his advisor team and some ministers, looking forward into what will be a busy autumn term for these MPs. Now, who best to speak to but the Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, Sir Mel Stride. Sir Mel, welcome to Chopper's Political Podcast.
Thank you, Chopper.
Great. You've been away, have you?
Yeah, I had a little time off.
Where'd you go?
Went to France with the family, and we took the dog.
Did you?
Which was fantastic.
Dog passport?
Well, we did all that. We've got a beagle.
Yeah.
And it was just so lovely because it was nice for her to have a holiday as well as us, rather than being left in some kennel somewhere.
Yes.
Devoid of the strife.
Sort of Brexit nightmare, were you saying? This is why it should have stayed in the EU for all these problems.
Well, it wasn't too bad. And I think a lot of the checks, actually, which are veterinary checks, they give them a worming tablet on the way back and show you've done that, which makes sense because you don't want those things over here. So, no,
what's your beagle called?
Peggy.
Peggy. Is Peggy rabid?
No, Peggy is she's a very lovely dog, or as the French would say, she's very gentille. Friendly,
And she enjoyed it.
She did. She had a lovely.
Well, I was in Wales, where there was no Wi-Fi or phone signal, and I only had Channel 4 on the TV. But I'm fine. I've got out.
You survived the Channel 4.
Lots of makeover shows. A lot of makeover shows. It's not just...
Well, that's very restful, isn't it? If you can actually switch off properly.
Yes, I did, yes. I kept grabbing the phone and then nothing had happened on it. I wondered why. And then I remember I'm actually in a dark place for the internet. We're speaking in the beginning of the party conference season. Reform UK is first out of the traps on Friday. I know it's the opponents of you, but we've got to talk about them. The most recent poll that I've seen has them on 35 points and you on 17 points. Why are they doing so well?
So look, we know that this government, the Labour government, is doing a terrible job. We know we had a terrible defeat in the last general election, lost that connection with the electorate. It will take time to rebuild it, but I'm confident we can. But in the meantime, a party that occupies that vacuum, if you like, that is none of the above, that is a populist party that can be out there promising the earth without really having a clear plan as to how they're going to deliver any of that stuff, is going to make some headway. So I think it's not surprising. But the big question, Chopper, is what's going to happen in 4 years' time. That's the poll that matters.
Yep.
And I think there's all to play for in what is a very uncertain electoral system and electoral environment that we're in at the moment.
It just feels that you guys are following what Reform do. So Reform have already committed to pulling out of the European Convention on Human Rights to lift the basic rate of income tax to 20, to the start of paying that to 20,000 from £12,500 a year. The problem you've got is, yes, you're thinking about ideas and being responsible. They're just cracking on, aren't they? And
well, no, I would say on immigration, illegal immigration, they are following us because we brought to the House of Commons the deportation bill, which Labour failed to support.
But they can.
And amongst other measures, that had the disapplication of the Human Rights Act in terms of when it comes to deporting people. Lots of the things that Reform are now saying, although bear in mind, Reform are now saying they want mass deportations, whereas Nigel Farage not that long ago was saying that was absolutely impossible. They talked about sending various people back, including women and children. He's now saying, well, he's not sure about the women and children. This feels like it's all over the place. But on your second point on the economy, when it comes to that pledge to take everybody up to £20,000 out of income tax, we are not following them, and there's good reason why we're not. The IFS says that would cost £80 billion. That's getting on for half what we spend on the National Health Service every year with its 1.5 million employees. You've got to explain how you can fund that, or you end up where we were with the mini budget, if you remember, and I've spoken out very forcefully about my concerns about that at the time it happened, before it happened.
Budget.
Correct. You would be looking with Nigel Farage at that mini budget on steroids, and that's not a good place for our country.
And we are challenging him about how he's going to pay for it. It just seems the poll.
But what does he say? He says, "Oh well, it's all waste." He says
get a big hearing. He says DI savings. He says net zero.
But then you scratch the surface. There's not enough money there to make that a realistic claim. some of these suggestions, you look at their last manifesto, £140 billion worth of unfunded giveaways. No explanation really as how that was going to be paid for. And we have seen that playbook before, and it would take our country into a dangerous and dark place economically.
He's doing well, though, in the polls, isn't he? I mean, why do you think Nigel Farage appeals so much to people?
Well, I've said, Chopper, that I think you have got this background of a government in office that is just not delivering.
And they say dealing with the problems you left them.
Well, they will say, and we could discuss that, that's fine. And undoubtedly, when we were in government at the time we left, we were in a very low place in the polls, and we have a lot of work to do to regain the trust of the British people. And in that scenario, it's not just actually reform surging in the polls that has happened, it's also the fragmentation of politics. I mean, look at where the Greens are. You look at Sarah Sultana and Jeremy Corbyn flirting with this new party. This doesn't have a name yet, but it will at some point.
Your party.
Well, your party, as it's called. It could be your party, Chopper, but it won't be mine, all right? Well, definitely not be my party.
Okay. I'm in no party.
I've never seen you as a Corbynista, but still. But no, my point is that a lot of these tribal loyalties are breaking down. In other words, it's very frothy. And I think the outcome of the next general election is therefore highly uncertain, and it would be very foolish of anybody today to write the Conservative Party off. Absolutely not. We've got time to rebuild that trust. And one of the ways we'll do it, getting back to my economic point, is by showing that we are the grown-ups in the room. We are the party that stands for fiscal responsibility, and we will not deviate from that. And in a world in which the wheels are coming off the economy now, and Farage is peddling fantasy economics, there will be a growing market for that, is my prediction.
You mentioned the disastrous mini-budget. You were the chair of the Treasury Select Committee at the time.
Yeah.
You had important things to say on that at the time. Is it time that Liz Truss left your party? Is she really being a Tory at the moment?
Well, it's not for me to opine on whether anybody should be in the party or not. But I was very firm in what I said at the time, that if you come out with what we all want to see, in my word, Conservatives want to see this, lower taxes. We've got to get to becoming a lower tax economy. We know that. But you don't do it simply by coming forward with the tax cuts without explaining how you're going to pay for them. And that is, broadly speaking, what happened at the back end of 2022. And we saw what the markets did.
Yeah.
And with Farage, you would see that on steroids, I'm afraid.
Farage, bills himself as a patriot, and there's a patriotic party. But I remember the days, the Tory party was covering it, you were there, when the Tory party was the party of the flag, wave the Union flags around. Do you think that Reform is more patriotic than the Tory party?
No, look, I think patriotism is there for all parties to address and embrace. And I think the Conservative Party, historically and today, has very squarely been in that tradition. We are a party that is extremely proud of our culture, doesn't want to start apologising for things left, right and centre, as some of the centre-left seem to want to do, to recognise that we are a great country. And, of course, we love our flag and we love our traditions, we love our culture. And we believe in defending our country and standing up for those things that are British.
Has Nigel Farage got it in himself to be Prime Minister? Is he that kind of person?
Well,
he's never run anything.
It's interesting that you say Nigel Farage as Prime Minister and not Reform as a party of government, because that is a key distinction, Chop. This is a one-man band. And in fact, if you look at recent polling as to what people's recognition is of some of the others in the group, Richard Tice, for example, it's next to none. It is all about Nigel. And I think Nigel Farage sets the agenda, makes the decisions, is the one that the public knows about and relates to and so on. But there's not been much evidence. He's been very good at building a team. If you look at the way that they've fallen out, as with the MPs in Parliament,
Rupert Lowe example.
Rupert Lowe as one example, but not the only example. So I don't think those things speak to either, as we've been discussing, a party that is about planning for the future and coming up with robust plans to deliver on promises, or B, building that cohesive team of people. Who's going to be the Foreign Secretary? Can you tell me? Who's going to be the Home Secretary?
I do ask you.
Who's going to be the Chancellor?
I ask the exact questions. There's 4 or 5 of them.
There are no answers.
Well, there are no actual shadow Home Secretaries. There's no shadow Chancellor. We assume it's Richard Tice. We don't know that. You've got no opponent in his party, have you?
Yeah.
There's only 5 MPs. I mean, it's a poll-led story, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's very frothy. Look, one of the things I would say is if you were interviewing me now in 2019, and I was, heaven forbid, a socialist chopper, right? A Corbynista. You would be saying to me, Mel Stride, the Labour Party has suffered its biggest electoral defeat since the 1930s. How on earth are you going to get back into office after that, right? If I was Paul Poilievre in Canada before the Canadian election, you'd be saying the reverse. You'd be saying you're a shoo-in. You're 23 points ahead. 3 months before the election, you're going to be the next Prime Minister. He lost that election.
Trump happened in Canada.
It did, externalities. But that indicates that people are not as tribal and as rooted as they have been in the past. And of course, what happened with him is not only did Poilievre lose the election, he lost his own seat. Similar story with Albanese in Australia as well. Yes. Upsets are on the cards.
Things
and in
happening
a
quicker.
multi-party system now, Chopper.
On
the first past the post, first past the post, all sorts of things.
You mentioned Rupert Lowe. Is he welcome back in the Tory party?
Well, these are decisions for
you?
Kemi and the leadership.
You?
Well, I'm not the leader of the party, and so it's not for me to opine on those. But I was told that nobody ever listened to your podcast. I was told that, except your mum and probably my dog Peggy, actually. That's probably about it. No, it's not for me to opine on those kind of things.
But just finally on Kemi Bay, just looking at Kemi Bay, not her leadership, your colleague has now put in letters of no confidence in her from early November, 1 year on after she was elected leader. Will she lead your party into the next election?
Yes, she will. And one of the reasons she will is one of the things that is too often overlooked with Kemi Batenon, which is her resilience. This is probably the hardest job in the world. It is the hardest political job.
And the timing as well. The timing of the role as well. 1 year after a 14-year government.
Yeah. So, one of my resilience point, Chopper, is I think that what we need now is somebody who's going to stick the course. Okay, look, this is going to be tough. And there will always be people jumping up and down on the sidelines saying, if only this was a bit different and we had somebody else, it would all be magically, one bound Jack would be free. I'm afraid it's not like that. We've got really hard yards to do now. Holding the government to account, expressing our values, getting that connection with the electorate again, at the same time as doing the really hard, detailed work on where we will come together with that plan that's going to see a better Britain. So we've got to address things like getting tax down, simplified taxes that lean into growth and wealth creation, stop all these people leaving the country, with all their tax payments going with them. We've got to get on top of the size of government. We've got to look at skills, got to look at our university offer. Too many young people going to universities without acquiring the value added that justifies the cost of going in the first place. We've got to look at welfare, getting those costs down. Now, you mentioned reform.
As you were doing.
Reform, yeah, absolutely. Now, Labour overturned the $5 billion I had delivered, scored by the OBR, on welfare reform. What does Reform want to do? They want to spend more. They want to abolish the two-child limit, and we don't think that's right.
I think for British families, they say that the detail is not as on the issue of the two-child benefit cap. But anyway, yes.
Well, they said it, and they didn't resolve from it for quite a while. Now they may be trying to graciously U-turn in the nearer term. I don't know. But lots of other things, and supply-side changes, and getting energy costs down, and building things more quickly, and getting roads and rail and reservoirs, houses built. These are big existential challenges for our country, and we do that in the face of an ageing population, intergenerational unfairness, having to spend more on defence to hold our head high in the world and lead in Europe against an aggressive Russia and other nations. If we're going to do those things, my word, have you got to have a plan. And it doesn't happen in 5 minutes. You don't flick a switch and suddenly have all the answers. To my point about Kemi and resilience, she will drive us through that period in order to do that work. And that's her great strength.
And it will be the first time she addresses a party conference as leader, won't it? That's how early we are in her time as leader.
Yeah.
And we'll see how that plays out. I mean, my point about the Tories as an observer of it is it seems that you're against sprinters, but you're in a marathon race on your own. So you're taking time, and the system now doesn't give you time to develop your plans for ECHR withdrawal, if that's what you announced at the party conference, for example.
Well, I think we do have time. I do accept that, of course, if you're behind in the polls, it's an uncomfortable position. But what we've got to be is grown up and mature about it. And I think on the day of the general election, when we suffered that crushing defeat, everybody said it's going to take time. It's going to be very difficult. Now, some people know it is taking time and it is very difficult, are saying, oh, well, we should be doing all sorts of different things. The reality is, nothing has really changed in that respect, at least. We do need to take the time to come up with the answers and to reconnect with the British people. But we've made some progress.
Yes.
Now, progress, if you say, what did the electorate think on the day of the general election? Well, visceral anger towards the Conservative Party. In my seat, which had previously had a majority of over 20,000, reduced to 61, going into villages and seeing signs in windows saying the tactical vote to get the Tories out is Labour, was an astonishing situation to have arrived at. I believe we have moved on from that deep-seated anger that there was into some level of disengagement. Now, we clearly need to do a lot better than that.
Yes.
But we will
Yes.
get that engagement going through time. And conference will be an important stepping stone in that process.
When members get more of a say over policy is one idea.
Well,
somewhere.
let's wait to see what is said on that.
We're speaking a week when the Labour government has been trying to change the deck chairs amongst its team running communications. They've promoted one of your old foes on the Treasury team. Darren Jones is now the secretary, delivery secretary, as it were, for the Prime Minister.
It's like taking the captain of the Titanic and putting him in charge
What do you make of that?
Of another liner.
It's more bosses. I mean, it makes him out as a leadership contender, I suppose, as a journalist watching it. There's probably a bit of friction now between maybe Darren Jones and Rachel Reeves as we go into this quite key 12-week period before the budget. You've got Angela Rayner. She's Deputy Prime Minister, but Keir Starmer's deputy is also someone else. It's all a bit messy, maybe.
I think the real problem, Shopper, is not the internal politics of the Labour Party. It's what is being done to our country. Okay. If you look at what this party has done, and let me just quickly run you through. I'll package it up in a really nice little package. Mel's Minute, right? They went into the general election promising they wouldn't put up taxes left, right and centre. They did exactly that. £40 billion worth per year, £25 billion on businesses. Surprise, surprise, because they don't understand business. They were shocked that led to higher unemployment and lower growth. It also led to higher inflation, which was exacerbated by borrowing vast amounts of money and spraying their cash around like there's no tomorrow. Remember 14% for the train drivers, junior doctors, no strings attached, no productivity requirements, etc. And what they then ended up with, because inflation has been higher for longer, is interest rates higher for longer, a growing national debt, our servicing costs on that over $100 billion a year, twice what we spend on defence. That's not going into supporting public services. That's simply paying off Rachel Reeves's accumulated debt and mismanagement of the economy. And where are we now? Going into the autumn, a cruel summer of speculation. What taxes are going to go up? Businesses worried, not investing because they're worried about what the tax landscape will look like
every day.
Every single day. We've got an opposition day motion on Wednesday that I'll be opening on.
On tax?
On tax, and specifically property taxes. Because having locked themselves out of the big heavy lifting taxes as they did in their manifesto, although they breached that in terms of employers' national insurance, but nonetheless, they get pushed into ever smaller spaces to scrabble around and raise yet more tax. And that's why they're looking at people's houses. I mean, can it possibly be right that on your primary residence, they might, as is being speculated in the press and floated, actually charge capital gains tax?
I'll answer that question.
Well, indeed. Question for all their front bench, Franklin.
You saw Rachel Reeves in tears opposite you, didn't you, when you were there? What do you make of that?
I was very upset about it, actually, genuinely. Actually, I felt for her. And I looked over. I didn't know what was going on, but I don't think we entirely know now because it's a personal matter, and I respect the fact that that's the position she took on it. But I felt quite disturbed by it. I messaged her afterwards, so I hope that she was all right.
Did she reply?
And she did. She did. Yeah, she did. And I think on that human level, I think that's one of the problems with politics, isn't it? Is the part of the political cut and thrust is, in a sense, too many politicians are out there to dehumanise.
Well, you're not that person.
Well, I don't think I am. Well, I hope I'm not. Anyway.
Just on the issue of taxation, if we take a step back and look at what's happened this decade, your government spent £500 billion on the COVID response, £400 billion, the energy shock caused by the Russian invasion of Ukraine, £100 billion. Wasn't it always going to be the case that would have to be paid for in increased taxation in the back end of this decade?
No. I think that's precisely the right argument in a way, because clearly, if you go out and intervene at that scale, then that adds to the debt, and that has to be paid off. Okay, at some point. And that can be done through growth. It can be done through cutting costs, which this government's absolutely hopeless at, or indeed further taxation. But I think the most important question was it the right thing to have done?
Yes.
Now, if you remember at the time,
I'm not questioning
when the economy shrank by 10% overnight, this furlough scheme a bit. No. Most political pundits and others were saying, do more. You're not doing enough. What about this group? What about that group? Yeah. Well, we did that. And I think on employment and the economy, we came out okay at the end of it. When
there
it
is
could have been.
There's a bill to be paid.
Absolute.
There's a bill that must be met by the current government, and they're doing it through raising taxes to pay for that.
What they're doing is adding massively to the debt. They're adding to the servicing costs of the debt by mismanaging the economy and therefore suffering high gilt rates, which is the amount that the rates we get charged on borrowing from other countries and institutions.
Quite high now, aren't they?
It's higher than Greece. Okay, we are way an outlier in that sense. So that's part of the problem.
And just finally going back to the issue I started with, which was Reform UK. Can you imagine any kind of merger with that party?
No. Why would I support a merger with a party that is fiscally irresponsible and would do things with our economy that would take this country into a very dark place?
So if that merger happened, would you quit as a Tory?
I don't get into any hypothetical questions because it depends on what exactly the circumstances were and so on. But as to merging or whatever with Reform, absolutely not.
Sir Mel Stride, thank you for joining us in the first week back for a busy political term for you. Thank you for joining us.
Great pleasure.
And we'll see you again.
Great. Look forward to it.
Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living. And maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is TallyMoney?
Well, Bev, with TallyMoney, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade. And in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks' savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at TallyMoney. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access, away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind the more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
My next guest is Jonathan Brown. This week we'll be seeing the official unveiling of a new think tank, which I think many think will be part of the brains trust behind Reform UK. With me now is Jonathan Brown. Jonathan, welcome to Chopper's Political Podcast. I was texting your excellent advisor today about it, and I said, what's it for, this new think tank? And he said on a message on WhatsApp, it's time to unite the Bryans of the right. I think he meant brains of the right.
Very, very good.
Or maybe not. I mean,
very good to be here, Chris.
It's good to see you. I mean, people who aren't called Brian can be part of your think tank, can they?
We are deciding that.
Okay,
we are on the edge. I mean, it could go either way. I mean, do remind me to fire my head of comms.
No.
But yeah, I mean, preferably Brian's, but
also Nigel's and Richard's.
Yeah, exactly. Like the whole range of strong male first names, and preferably the female ones as well. Who knows?
Okay. So it's called, as things stand, it's called Resolute 1850.
No, we changed our name.
Right,
we changed our name.
Talk to me, okay.
So our name is now Centre for a Better Britain.
Yeah.
Resolute 1850 was after the president's desk. It was basically for a drinks party in Washington. It seemed like one of those clever ideas at the time.
Yes.
It appeals to a certain demographic, less to others. Quite a narrow demographic.
So just Brian.
Generally, yes, a Brian type person, more an elderly historian type. They liked it. I got fed up with explaining to everyone else. So I think let's actually do it. The Ron Seal test is, does it say what it does on the tin? So we went for Centre for a Better Britain. Harder to argue with.
Centre for the Better Britain. Now it's
or a Better Britain. CFAB.
Right, CFAB. And it's billed as a MAGA idea, bringing MAGA politics to this country. Is that right?
I don't think that's really fair. I mean, what we take inspiration from MAGA in that there's a desire for transformational change. This is a different country. President Trump has a certain style. Some like it, some don't. We're very much focused on really radical policy change in the UK. That's our
From
policy.
the right or the left or both? I'm not sure what right or left means now.
Yes, exactly. I mean, what I would say is our unifying factor is that the Uni Party has failed.
By the Uni Party, you mean Labour and the Conservatives?
Yeah, the
And
Conservatives as they then were. I mean, let's hope there's transformation in them, but certainly the Lib Dems as well. We've been led by a liberal elite. I hate that phrase, liberal elite, because they're neither liberal nor an elite. To quote, I think Voltaire on the Holy Roman Empire. There we go. That obscure reference. Go back to Resolution 1851. So I must stay away from my historical background on that. But the idea is, our current politics are just driving us into the ground.
But they're working in a rules framework established in the Second World War, aren't they? They're working within those rules.
They are. And if I said
that's
to you,
what they do what they can.
And if I said to you, if we did anything else policy-wise on the 1950s, if I said, let's stick with our policy on women or ethnic minorities from the 1950s, you would rightly be horrified at me, and I'd be horrified at myself for saying it. So why we are letting legislation that was for an entirely different time period define where we are now, extraordinary.
What you mean is the European Convention on Human Rights.
Partly.
I'm guessing.
Yes. But
so the Reform UK look like what they are saying. They want to scrap that. The Tories may be saying that in their party conference next month. Is that the kind of the kernel of where you sit is stripping that away and what replaces? Is that what you're doing?
It will partly what we look at. Actually, we're quite keen to get away from just a complete focus on immigration. I think the crisis we are facing is much bigger. We are facing an economic crisis. To some extent, our immigration crisis is a function of economic crisis. The Treasury is so terrified that we're going to run out of people to pay state pensions, fundamentally. Pay their pensions. They have a focus there, amazingly enough. Weirdly, how financial incentives make people worry about stuff. They are so worried about that we need to look at that. We also would like to look at energy policy. The net zero policy, just watching it while waiting for you now, is completely suicidal. If we are going to take advantage of what could potentially be a third industrial revolution with AI, we need to fix the economics as well. A lot of people are talking about immigration. We will talk about it a little. It is a vitally important issue for this country. It would be mad not to engage with it, but it's not our main focus.
But are you Reform UK's in-house think tank then?
No, we are independent. We have great links with Reform UK. I was COO of Reform UK briefly. I think that's on the better public record. But we've reached out across sympathetic travellers. We've spoken to the Tory party, or certainly members of the Tory party.
I bet they're not, because you're rivals to Policy Exchange, aren't you? And
do you know what? Do you know, it's interesting. I would be, Warren, is there enough space? There's enough space. There's enough space. We've had great conversations with people like Robert Gendrick. They're very interested. I think Policy Exchange, places like that, doing great jobs. I'm a kind of no enemies amongst those who are not necessarily on the right, but right thinking. I don't have an issue with that at all.
So there's no radical thinking on the right at the moment, and you're offering that.
I think it would be very unfair to throw everyone on the right under the bus and say there's no radical thinking, but it's certainly our framing. I think a lot of what I would like to say, do you remember in The Godfather, there's that phrase, are you a wartime consigliere? We're a wartime think tank. We are a think tank that is focused on radical solutions.
But come on, you're based in the same building which Reform UK is based in. All you need to install now is some kind of pole to slide down and go and speak to them. I mean, you're based...
in a suit, that would be very inelegant. I've been far too many lunches, something might split.
But they need help on policy. I mean,
we talked to Reform UK.
He told Channel 4 recently that he hasn't got policies, only aspirations. So when he says he wants to lift the rate at which we all pay income tax from 12,500 to 20,000, and that costs between 50 and 80 billion pounds, that's an aspiration. I mean, the part of the problem of covering Reform UK as a journalist is what is it? I mean, it's like trying to nail jelly to the wall. What is the policy of this party? And perhaps this might provide some
we would hope we can certainly influence their policy. Absolutely. They make their own policy. I can't speak for them at all. But certainly having that second order thinking. I also think it's vital for any political party to have a think tank that's a little bit away from the centre, because otherwise you get in a situation where you're just fighting the battle. Political parties rightly spend all their time campaigning. I mean, I've been in the belly of the beast of one. That is what they do. They are there to win elections. That is not the same as thinking up policy. There is so many things wrong with this country that we need to have a radical turnaround.
Yeah. You're fundraising already?
We are, yeah.
You're looking for US money, I read somewhere?
Yes, at the moment, all our money is from British residents. We will seek money in the US.
That's okay legally? No one minds that?
Yeah, I mean, we are an independent think tank. We're not a political party. We're very transparent about that, and our work will be published for everyone to use. And we would actually be delighted if some members of the Labour cabinet, picked up our policies. I mean, I'd fall off my chair, but we would be delighted if it actually happens. So, yeah.
And what kind of policies are you looking at initially? You mentioned energy just now. Is that a policy you're looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. So the two big areas we're looking at initially are energy, what happens post net zero. So I think everyone
post 2050, or when when they reform drop it as a policy.
Exactly, when it drops as a policy. And I think whether or not it's reform government, it's very clear from the Conservative Party. It's very clear actually from some interesting people on the Labour Party. You notice that almost semi-attempted coup by Tony Blair against Ed Miliband a couple of months back.
He walked back from those comments.
He did walk back from it, but he wanted to make them though, didn't he? He wanted to make them fascinating, but they know net zero is driving this country into the ground. We need to think, okay, sure, in the future might be helpful. But actually now what we need is a pragmatic approach that takes advantage of the oil stocks we have, thinks about transition to nuclear, and thinks about energy security.
And the Tory party is actually listening to that, isn't it? They're saying,
yeah.
Drill the oil and gas we can out of the North Sea and then move on to...
I think it's frankly a consensus that everyone believes in. It's Ed Miliband. He must be quite lonely over there.
So apart from energy, what's the other area you're looking at?
So we're looking at there potentially being a fiscal crisis, a sovereign debt bankruptcy.
That's the rising cost of borrowing.
Exactly, the rising cost of borrowing, the complete inability of the current Labour government to reduce even a tiny element of the welfare criteria. It's a disaster at the moment. The question really is when now. Maybe after the budget, maybe before the budget.
What would you know when? The next
in terms of when there'll be a financial crisis, and I think we might be looking at a 1976 style event, like a proper bankruptcy type crisis.
When?
Potentially before Christmas.
Right, because the budget, we're expecting a budget, aren't we, in November?
Exactly.
Time.
So it could be triggered by the budget. It could be triggered by all those bond dealers coming back from holiday and looking at the fundamentals and thinking, God, where are we? What's happened while we've been sunning ourselves in Marbella?
And to explain to listeners and viewers, it's the rising cost of borrowing, the interest rates that the government's paying on its own debt is going up.
Exactly.
And that's what is not sustainable.
It's absolutely not sustainable. And also, remember, markets are all about confidence. You're a newsman, that's what the game is. And the government are doing nothing that indicates that they will actually be able to cut debt, have a sustainable growth program. Their solution to everything is let's float a new tax.
That's why there's those rules defined by the Labour government, the triple lock on taxes they had last year in the manifesto. That's why they can't be messed around within the budget.
Well, I mean, they're floating all sorts of ideas. There's a whole idea of what do they mean by working people. As far as I can see, they mean people who aren't Labour voters. If you're not a Labour voter, God help you, they're talking about property taxes. Probably we'll see a rise in inheritance tax. I mean, what's terrifying, and I've been pounding the streets trying to get donations recently, is every donor I speak to is, do I want to go to Dubai? Do I want to go to Monaco? The Italians are doing. Yeah, I know, and that's terrifying.
A few thousand people can afford to move their domicile. Most Brits just can't.
No, and I know, and this is terrifying. And I think we need to tackle this head on, absolutely, because we're in danger of immiserating our population.
You're a former COO of Reform UK. Why did you leave last October?
So I've been there during the election. I'm a campaign. I was a comms guy, campaigns guy. I stayed on for a bit. Sierra, I think this is why he publicised, came in, wanted to bring in his new people.
He's the main funder, I suppose.
He's not the main funder. He was there, so we parted ways. But that's fine. Obviously kept in touch with a lot of people in the party. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this.
And Nigel Farage is giving you a blessing. Now we're recording this podcast earlier this week because I have to go away for work. But we're coming out on Friday morning. That's the day of the Reform UK conference. Will you be there?
I will. Yeah.
And what's the plan? Is it planned to unveil this new think tank at the conference?
No, we're doing press briefings beforehand. So we'll be there. A lot of our people are speaking on panels in various capacities. Yeah. We'll be there giving the odd interview, but we will be releasing earlier this week.
Good. And Nigel Farage has given all the blessing.
Yeah. When we speak to Nigel, we're very friendly with Nigel.
Yeah. So it's going to be a new think tank. And it's wrong to say it's the MAGA think tank. I mean, that's a shorthand.
You won't let it go, will you, Chris? It's not the MAGA think tank. I mean, if only I had more US funding, frankly, no. We are for the UK's problems, and they are very specific to the UK.
But you're willing to think outside the box. That's
Absolutely. We're thinking outside the box.
Okay. Well, Jonathan Brown, thank you for joining us today on Chopper's Political Podcast. We'll be having you back on again when you've got some new policies to put out there.
I hope so very much. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you earlier to my guest, Mel Stride, of course, the Shadow Chancellor. I tweet at Christopher Hope on X. Email me, chopper@gbnews.uk, if you want to have your say on what the new think tank's up to and what Reform UK is up to, also on their conference weekend. Do you tweet or do you have a website?
We will be cfab.uk.
Okay. Enjoyed this show, please do tell your friends. If you really enjoyed it, leave a 5-star review and a rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. That helps other people to find it. Thanks to the great team of GB News colleagues behind this, Mick Booker and Jeff Marsh. They're the bosses. And the podcast busy worker bees, they've been gathering pollen all August for this podcast. I think that's right. Rebecca Nunes and George McMillan collapsing in hysterics here in our studio. Most importantly of all, thank you again for listening. If you want more Chopper in your life, and Jonathan does, please catch me during the week on GB News with our latest political stories and updates and scoops, and get our best reporting on our website, gbnews.com. But from Jonathan and me, until next time, cheerio!